Well, hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about how indie game developers can effectively work with streamers. Just to introduce myself real quick, I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Skillz. We're the leading esports infrastructure for mobile games. So we power competitive play, and then we actually send content out to places like Mobcrush. So I'm really excited to talk a little bit about how indies can more effectively work with streamers. And why don't I turn over to Greg here, who will introduce himself.
Hey everyone, I'm Greg Essig. I head up business development at a streaming startup called Mobcrush. We are a mobile-focused competitive streaming platform. Unlike Skillz, we don't offer the tournament organizations or stuff, but we offer the tools needed to broadcast your gameplay from mobile devices, as well as chat and interact with your community while doing so. And we're about 2 years old, based in Santa Monica, California. And like I said, we're totally focused and just in love with mobile gaming. Prior to this, I managed the games category on Apple's App Store out of Cupertino, so I have a long-term affinity for mobile games.
Nice. Stephanie?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Patrick. I'm one of the owners of the Theorist properties on YouTube. So game theory and film theory are kind of the mythbusters for gaming, TV, and movies. And we also have a dedicated live stream channel called GT Live. That's the largest live stream channel that regularly live streams on YouTube. So I'm repping the YouTube today. We have, across all of our properties, about 10 million subscribers. And since this is a streaming-focused panel, our live streams typically get anywhere between 15 and 45,000 concurrents per stream, which equates to, for us, about anywhere between 125 to 450,000 viewers per 90-minute stream. So we do a lot of streaming, and we stream everything, AAAs, a lot of indie games, so really excited to be here.
Awesome. And Dan?
Well, I cannot compare to those numbers at all in any way, shape, or form. I'm Dan Long, twitch.tv/indie. I've been broadcasting on Twitch for like 4 years, I think. When I went to get partnered, it took me about 6 months to get partnered, and I was doing all kinds of stuff, getting embedded on websites like Indie Gala and Groupies, which, if you guys know what that is, they bundle games together. About 4 million views on my channel. Now I focus more, I do PR and spokesperson type stuff and social media for gaming companies and other companies. But I still love live streaming, and but I kind of do it now more as a hobby.
Thank you, Dan. So to jump right in, Newzoo predicts this year that esports streaming viewership is going to surpass 250 million viewers. Do you guys think that number's low, high, and what do you see for this year for esports streaming?
Who's first? Me? You? Okay, I'll go first. I think that number's low. I think esports is just blowing up. It's going downhill. There's no stopping it, like I was saying earlier today. It's a horse, and it's just trampling everything. Colleges are offering scholarships. They have their own teams. And some of the team rooms, I was looking at some pictures. I don't remember what college it was, but they had like their esports team training room, and it was just awesome. And the lights were all colored. It's like people are so much into esports, and now with so many companies doing esports for games like CSGO, they have their own tournaments. Literally, there's hundreds and hundreds of different websites that you can go to, and you can sign up and you can join and be in an esports tournament. I think there's no stopping it for sure.
I would second that. I think it's a bit low. I think we'll only go up from here. With live streaming really becoming popular in mass market places, even at places where gaming isn't traditionally so hot, as well as mobile game streaming really coming up. I think that combined with the traditional esports continued success. I just went to ESL 1 in Cologne, and holy crap, there were 14,000 people 4 days in a row in an arena, and they were seeing 1 million concurrent viewers at some of the finals. This thing is a rocket ship. And with increased diversity of content and more things for every user to love, I really believe that live streaming is a big part of the future of media, and esports a big part of that for gaming.
and I would echo a lot of what's already been said, and just add that with live streaming and with the advent of so many live streaming platforms that specialize in specific areas, esports are so much less tentpole event driven now. In between every esports tournament, you can follow your favorite players, you can watch them live every day, you can see them build their skills, you can become invested in them, and so you don't forget about your favorite esports teams between major tournaments anymore because you can follow them literally on a daily basis.
And let's be honest too, a big part of regular sports is all the drama that comes with it. Nobody's really unlocked that format on esports, and there's a lot of people with a lot of handsets in their hands right now, hopefully going to start streaming the behind-the-scenes stuff. So if you're a super fan and you want to be involved in all that drama or just watch the train wreck, there's plenty to watch.
What's awesome is they have like team houses where they all live together. And then they're like, oh, let's do a Periscope screen. And they're all talking crap about each other. And they live stream from their houses. And I think that's great to give an inside look.
Totally.
Plus, if you just like to watch stuff that's out of control.
So maybe to talk a little bit about the game developers.
Okay.
Why do you think game developers should get involved in streaming? Is this something they should even be focusing on at all? What's your opinion?
I think yes, because there are more tools than ever to engage, as a game developer, to engage directly with your audience. You can skip out all of those middle players and start having a point of view directly with the audience that you're trying to engage. And not only that, but get real-time feedback. If you start streaming your game, especially prior to launch, and you want to know, where you should prioritize your time, that usually is a good way to determine what feature is going to get attention and what feature is not going to get attention. So I think there's value in it from a development standpoint as well as value in it from a marketing standpoint. Additionally, especially with the younger generation, you look at the millennials, they use an average of 2 devices a day. The younger Gen Z use 5 devices a day. They're what we call hyper-connected, and they use 10, 12, 15 different social networks. If you as a developer are not engaging with them in all of the social graphs they're using, I feel like you're missing a huge opportunity.
Yeah, I would agree there, and also just speak from the YouTube perspective really quickly. The opportunity for indie developers has never been bigger on YouTube, especially with streamers and with people who are looking to play games that are really engaging and that appeal to, that really appeal and really connect with their audiences. I know for us, indie games have been a mainstay for our live streaming channel. Our split between indie games and AAAs is actually 80-20 to indies. We play a ton of indie games, and it's because they provide so much flexibility, so much innovation, and open our audiences and our own play styles to new things, and we can really approach games in a very different way a lot of times if we're working, if we're playing an indie game. The other thing to add is that I think that indie developers have so much influence in the space right now. Just with like my favorite example is this past year with Undertale. It's been such an incredibly impactful game on the gaming community, and it was literally developed by a single person, but Toby Fox designed a game that was really unique and interesting to play, so much so that people are taking what the play style of Undertale, which if you're not familiar with it, the best way to complete the game is to not kill anything in the game. And it's actually hard to do that, but that's the real victory in the game. But that game was so influential that people started playing other games that you're not supposed to play like that, just to see if they could do it. They started playing Call of Duty no-kill runs, and they started playing, Fallout and all these other games, practically breaking the games in order to play them in this innovative way that an indie developer showed us. And I think that's really powerful and really cool.
I think that's cool. I play this war of mine. I play it as evil. I don't know if you ever played this war of mine, but you go into a church and save people. I just kill them all. But I love to do that kind of stuff. Have you ever seen people do Skyrim with a no-kill run and they make the other character? That's awesome. But as far as developers streaming, for some unbeknownst reason to me, and I'm not a coder, people love to watch people write code, right? Especially if you're a coder. I know how to write a little bit of code. I guess it's HTML and CSS, but I know that the way you write your code kind of is also like your personality. So it's like shows, if you're writing code and people are watching and interacting, you're like opening up a piece of your heart, because people that write code they're a different breed. And so I've been to some game developer streams, and it's just a bunch of stuff that I have no idea what they're talking about, but you can see that it's passion, and it's also opening the door for that developer to, like I said, open up a little bit of their heart and share that. And I think that really builds a community, and it makes the developer seem more, instead of just some person somewhere writing code, it makes it more of a real person. It makes it more personal. So the people that are watching that become personally invested in that game.
I think you really touched on something, which is that personal connection to it. Having a point of view. Look, I said I come from Apple, and I'm sure they're going to hate me for saying this sort of stuff, but look, the young community doesn't necessarily want to hear from the Borg or some no-name company what they should play. They want to hear from real people that they can relate to. And having that point of view, I think, can engage your community in a way that hasn't been possible in the past. I mean, you look at the console universe, you used to need a license from an approved company to even release your game. Like, all of these tools are allowing the democratization of you as a game developer to get in direct contact with the community you are. And additionally, as games become incredibly more global, there are a lot of people living in a lot of very strange places who have very limited exposure to gaming as a business. And you offer a huge aspirational element if you show that you are a professional game developer, as on top of, again, just having a point of view and having a personality and putting the face behind the name. I'm a huge believer in that, building relevance and equating actually to an ROI.
And from the streamer standpoint, it makes a huge difference if you can actually see the perspective of the game developer and hear from them even during the development process. So one of the things we do is we play a lot of Steam Greenlight games, and they're super useful. You can see the demo, you can play it, and a lot of times we have a conversation after that if it's a game we really liked with the developer, and we'll be like, well, what's going to happen in the rest of the game, or what are you going to add? And they can speak from a completely personal perspective, and they can be like, this was my vision for the game, this is why I'm so passionate about it, and you can really tell how entrenched they are and how invested they are into something that they really love. And there's that very personal connection, and that makes a huge difference.
Now, that can backfire too if you're not into the game you're developing. So don't do it if this is some work for hire thing that you don't care about, because the users will sniff that out just as easily.
So maybe
seriously, I've watched that happen. Don't do that.
Maybe jump in and switch directions a little bit, but Dan, I just want to throw this one to you, because I think the question many indies might ask is, this is all great, but how do I get my game streamed? Dan, how do you pick the content for your streams?
Personally, Twitter is big time. Developers reach out to me. I get emails, but honestly, I get so many emails. It's kind of ridiculous sometimes. Also, Keymailer was awesome. Keymailer, do distribute. I think a lot of Twitch live streamers, YouTube live streamers too, probably, actually, I don't really know any. Well, I know her, but I just met her, so.
We're good friends now.
We're friends now. But I love Keymailer. I love, oh, look, you've been offered a key. That's awesome. And if I get an email, okay, I'm a 3D animator also. I graduated from Animation Mentor. And one of the things that I learned was in your demo reel, how to make your demo reel. Your demo reel, you don't want to have any mediocre anything in it at all. You want to have your very best shot at the beginning, then you want to have some awesome shots, and then you want to have your second best shot at the end. Now, as somebody that gets a lot of emails, if you want my attention, make a video that has only the best stuff of the game. Make it about 30 seconds. You were just talking about something like this earlier too. And just make it just like, bam, this is awesome. And then you get enthused about it. If I get a game and then it's like 14 paragraphs of why somebody's passionate about a game. And I mean, I understand the passion, but I don't want to, if you're trying to get me to play your game, just give me a couple paragraphs, a link to a video, and a key, or say I'll offer you a key, and I think a lot of Twitch streamers or other streamers get so many emails, hundreds and hundreds of emails, and weeding through that, you just want to just like bam, 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 get through it quick. Is that right? Is that about right? How
Yeah.
many emails do you guys get?
There are like several thousand unread emails in our channel inbox
can't
at this
stand
point.
that.
It's there, so we get a lot of email. Email is actually kind of a bad way of getting the word out about your game in terms of actually reaching people who can play it. That's kind of sucks to say. Twitter is much better. Actually, starting a conversation on Twitter and having something really succinct to say and really exciting to say about your game. A little link. Sometimes that is all it takes. For us, and I know for a lot of other people who not only do streaming but also do just VOD content on up and coming games, we discover games everywhere. Reddit, Tumblr. A lot of the stuff we play is stuff that fans have requested, and a lot of times they request it because they've seen somebody else play it, either a smaller channel who's just picked it out because they thought it was interesting, and it's started to gain traction. Another thing we do is if okay, fan X has sent this game to us, we're reading some stuff about it on Reddit, who else is playing it? To be honest, if we're streaming it, is somebody else streaming it? Who else is streaming it? Can we get suggested against their videos? If we're streaming it and we're using the same keywords as them, can we capitalize off of their SEO, and can we make this a thing where a whole bunch of people in the community are now playing it? So it's a matter of what fans are asking for, what we see that's interesting, and what other people are playing too. Beyond that, if it's a game that we're just looking at, if we go to Steam and we're looking for something new that's interesting and exciting, it's going to be one of three things. It's going to be, can the audience play with us in some way? Is it fun for them to watch on an ongoing basis? Like, it's not like there's one exciting moment 45 minutes into the gameplay and that's it, because no one's going to wait that long. Is it exciting from start to finish? Or is it, the other thing I was talking to these guys about was, is it emotionally evocative in some way? So we've had really long retention times. Some of our longest retention time streams have been on these games that are long, story-driven, and they're very interesting in some ways. So Franbo is an indie game that we played earlier this year. On the AAA side, we played stuff like Until Dawn, and we get retention times over and above 40 minutes per stream on average. That's like an average retention time. So people get really invested. So can we find in the game one of those three things that we know can hook people in and keep them staying with us to watch for the duration?
And from my perspective, I second all of that stuff. It's really doing the extra work to think like a broadcaster and arm the broadcaster with the tools they need to succeed streaming your game. So that is looking on various networks like Mobcrush, like Twitch, like YouTube, finding the personalities that you think, at least based on their current content, would fit well with your content, and then reaching out to them using social media. Twitter, honestly, we get a ton as a streaming platform. We get a ton of inbounds on Twitter as well. It seems to be kind of the main forum that people communicate, at least in this realm. And then really thinking about what you can offer them that's exclusive or unique to stand out from the other streamers streaming different games. And that could be as simple as in-game items, cosmetic items or currency, etc.
All the DLC.
Or hints at an exclusive of what they could hint at a feature that's coming in the future, or what you really want to try to do is you really want to create a community who's excited to stream about you, because there's a bunch of people who want to watch it. And to create something that's really fun to watch, you need not only a fun game to view, but a personality to drive it, and then some way for there to be communication coming back from the audience. So you want to have that two-way street. And it's arming these guys with, it's first identifying them and then arming them with the tools they need to succeed.
So maybe beyond kind of your traditional social media marketing, Dan, Stephanie, you guys were telling me some cool stories about ways that indies have reached you. Do either of you want to share some of the more innovative
Yours
ways
is cooler.
I don't know if mine's cooler. All right, I got a package in the mail one day, and I opened it up, and it was like kind of fragile, and it looked like a, well, you could tell somebody printed it out and made it, and it looked kind of like a phone booth thing with the slot cut out of it. And I opened it up, and inside was this robot. It was called a bit, it's a robot about this tall, and he had an antenna in his head that pulled out, and it was a thumb drive. And the guy from BitShifter was the game. He used his 3D printer and sent me this thing in the mail. Will you please play my game? And we built a relationship. We're friends now. I mean, where I talk to him on Skype all the time, and building a relationship with the live streamer or broadcaster is a good way. I mean, I interview developers on my stream and stuff, and so I get to know a lot of people, but that just shows that, hey, I really want you in particular to play this game. And I mean, that felt really good. And I have that like in my little, my shelf with other important stuff right in the office there. So it's always something I talk about.
And for us, on our live stream, it's a pretty well-known fact that we are addicted in like an unhealthy way to Diet Coke. So we've had a couple instances where we've talked to game developers or publishers who have asked us to play their game, or have given us a code, or given us information about the game or a demo or something, along with a nice Diet Coke bribe. So if you ever want us to play a game, send Diet Coke with it, I guess, is the lesson. It's not a very good lesson, but there you go. It worked.
They've already received bottles, so I think you got to step it up to a pallet at this point.
Or, yeah, 12 pack.
supply.
12 pack will work. It's fine.
So kind of leveraging off of that, Dan, what do you think are the keys to successful long-term relationships with streamers? What advice would you give to an indie on how to build that relationship?
Wow. Well, one of the things, Edge of Space, they did this cool thing with live streamers where, and a lot of games you can do this kind of stuff, and other games you can't, but they made, for all the live streamers that were streaming their game quite a bit, and I think it was, God, I don't remember, 25 or 50, they made character outfits. So I got a little indie ogre, and they gave me like 20 codes, so that I have this special little indie ogre in the game, and I can give these codes out to people, so when they play the game, they can put on the little outfits. And it's pretty cool, a little green dude with a mohawk, you know. That is, I think, one way, because it makes you feel special, and it puts in something that's a digital, you know, it's digital. It's not like you have an inventory and it goes away. But something like that is really, really special in the game, because I know that only me and 20 other people have this little thing in the game, and I think that's really awesome.
It works for streaming networks too. There's a game called Pig Bang that's a MOBA coming up, and they made
Pig Bang?
Yeah, it's a MOBA with a bunch of pigs.
That sounds like something I want to play.
Yeah, you should. It's
I
pretty
checked it out
cool.
on Mobcrush this morning. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they made a bunch of custom hats. All the characters have little trucker hats, and so there's like 7 custom Mobcrush hats that you can only get by watching the stream on Mobcrush. Like, there's no way to buy it in the game, etc. So, you know, those sort of exclusive call to actions really do drive engagement.
And for us, it's I would echo exactly what's already been said in a lot of ways. Like the Diet Coke example is sort of a funny one, but it actually shows that a developer watched a stream. They watched enough content on our channels to know that this is a thing. It's it's a meme that's specific to the channel and that's specific to the personalities who are playing these games, and that's exciting. Another way that we continue to engage with developers is if we play a game early, if we play a demo, if we do a Steam Greenlight kind of deal. If they reach out to us after the fact and say, I saw your stream, I liked when you did this, you're so stupid, you've missed X, Y, and Z. You know, any time that they reach out to us and tell us how they felt about the fact that we played their game, that's really meaningful. It means that they took the time to not only watch what we were doing, but that they care enough about their own IP that they're seeing who's out there playing it. They're paying attention to where it's going, whose hands it's in, and how it's being received, not only by players, but by player spectators as well.
Google Alerts is so important. Put the name of your game in Google Alerts, and you get an alert every day. You can see what new videos are made.
Absolutely. So maybe, Greg, to transition over to the content side, what do you see as commonalities between the games that are becoming top streaming hits? And I'd love to maybe start with the indie perspective. We can also talk about AAAs.
Yeah. Well, the commonalities that we're seeing on mobile are actually very similar to the commonalities we see on other platforms, which are one of really two segment buckets. Games that have competitive synchronous multiplayer modes, so you get the intensity of actual competitive gameplay, or ones with some sort of procedural or dynamic content generation. So ones that are different when you watch them every time. So Minecraft is a great example, or Roblox, or that. The story-based single-player games, we get a lot of interaction when they first launch, but then those seem to sort of die out if they don't find a community. So really, adding that variety and then finding the right personality to sort of complement it seems to be a sweet spot for success on streaming. Single-player games are really difficult to keep interesting for longer periods of time in our experience. Even with the right personality, there's just a lot of dead air, there's a lot of waiting time. Same with asynchronous games, a lot of waiting time, and that's just, it's hard for these guys to fill that with compelling content to keep the users. So really a game that just doesn't have to have a special spectator mode, but has the ability to jump in and out of gameplay pretty fast.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Games that can be interpreted differently depending on who's playing them are huge, and no matter what form that takes, that's absolutely hands down going to be a lot more engaging for a streaming audience. So everything from and it's interesting because it plays out differently on different platforms, right? On Twitch, you see the multiplayer competitive games as the top ones. Top 3 on Twitch right now are like League of Legends, Dota, and
CS:GO.
That's in the mix there somewhere.
Or Overwatch probably now.
Yeah, Overwatch is now in there. It's those games, those really intense multiplayer games. On YouTube, it's a different story actually. It's those personality variety games that really top out. So Minecraft is number 1. Believe it or not, The Sims is in the top 10 somehow. And games like Five Nights at Freddy's are in there. All of these really interesting games that either elicit big reactions or are totally different depending on who's playing them. Gary's Mod is another great example. So what works well for streaming really plays out differently depending on the platform that you're on, and it's really important, I think, to remember that depending on what your game is going for and which of those audiences you think your game is going to play into best, right? For YouTube, especially those games where you have a dynamic experience the entire time, and that's everything from like one we played this past week is Please Don't Touch Anything. It's the name of the game. It sounds really compelling, right? But it's a game where there are 20 different endings. You can get them in any order you want, and for some people, they get half of them right away, and then they get really angry, and you can see them like try and puzzle things out. It's seeing that organic reaction in real time that makes such a huge difference for those kinds of games. Single player, really hard. I mean, the big titles of things that everyone is so excited about, even stuff like Fallout 4, which was successful, I think, on YouTube for streaming for a few weeks, really, it dies out because there are only so many ways you can play it, even in a game as dynamic as Fallout 4 is.
Pokemon Go, trust me, every developer, every investor I have is on my ass about getting our users to stream Pokemon Go because it's such a huge fad right now. And look, we can't force them. We have some people streaming Pokemon Go, and the good thing is they're getting some views, but in the long term, I'm not sure that game doesn't seem to me as one that would yield incredibly compelling viewing experiences.
Speaking of that, there's 2 Pokestops right over here, just right in the tunnel.
So maybe we've talked a little bit about marketing once you're launched. We talked about content and what kinds of content can work. What about pre-launch? What can we do if we're indies to kind of get the word out and to become a hit at launch?
I'm going to go against my former employee again. I think pre-launch buzz is essential, especially on mobile. It is such a crowded space out there, and if you can find a dedicated community around another game that you think would easily convert and not be forced, definitely start teasing your game to them. Because if you were able to build some buzz around it, even if they aren't giving betas out, but I think streaming is one of the better ways to build buzz, because you can give the influencer in a somewhat controlled space and say, oh, only play level 5 because level 4 doesn't work. But they can play the game, they can show it, they can get people interested. What you want is all of the players saying, oh, I really want that game, oh, I really want that game. There's a shooter that's effectively Counter-Strike, but it's called COPS. It's not even live on iOS, and they have well over 700,000 views on our platform. That's an example of a game that has done tremendously well, engaging with the influencers for probably 6 months now leading up to their launch this fall. And they're going to go out with a dedicated community who enjoys watching the game, and hopefully those will convert into real users and a really active ecosystem.
I won't repeat anything that you've already said. The only thing I'll add to that is don't be afraid of glitches in your games. Don't be afraid to let rough edges show before a game launches. Streamers don't care, and audiences understand at this point. It's not a big deal. We've worked with so many developers who are afraid to let people live stream, and even in really controlled settings like at E3 or something, they'll let gamers capture, but then they'll scrub all the footage for any glitches or anything that might have gone wrong. Don't do that. For one, it's not worth your time, but also it creates a much less organic gameplay experience. And if there are glitches, the game hasn't come out yet. No one has put down $60 for it. No one, or however much it's going to be, or whatever format it's going to be in. It's okay to let those rough edges show, and to say that this game is still in progress if it still is in progress.
It's like a monster truck rally. They want to see the crushing cars.
Yeah, and then people can always talk about, I remember when I played that game and this was totally messed up. Now it's awesome.
What do you guys see as the current blockers to indies becoming a larger part of the landscape?
So many game developers. There's so many now. So many. It's become so easy. I mean, you used to have to pay for a game engine, and that was like, bam, let's mortgage your house. Now you can just go and get. Anybody can really do it. I mean, I see 12, 13-year-old developers. Anybody can do it now, because it's such easy access. There's so many games, so it's just flooded with so much stuff. You can look on Steam and go, okay, I looked at so much stuff, and then tomorrow you'll look at it and they'll be, I never even knew these games existed. I think I know, I pay attention to indie games, and I came here and I was like, over half the games I have never ever even heard of, and there's just so many games. I think it's really hard to stand out, for sure.
I mean, I could speak for mobile. I still think a lack of a viable premium marketplace has made it pretty tough. Indie games, there are some great free-to-play indie games, but free-to-play, essentially is a service, which is a longer-term sort of resource allocation that you need to apply towards that game. And I think a lot of indie game developers still think of their games as products, as things that they want to sort of release and move on to the next project. And there's a finite amount of users that are paying for premium games now on mobile, and I think that's been a continued big blocker for them. So the hope is that these live streaming or marketing exercises will allow indie game developers to find those audiences in more and more remote places because of the ease of marketing. But I agree, it's noise. There's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of games coming out, and how do you differentiate?
So Stephanie, maybe as somebody who's doing, I think you said 80% indie content versus 20% AAA, have you noticed any differences between how viewers are engaging with one type of content versus the other?
Absolutely. So a lot of the AAA games that come out, even if they're really robust multiplayer games with multiplayer elements and things like that, usually it's still in a pretty limited sphere. So even if you think about Overwatch, there's a maximum number of players that can play at any given time. That's, it's less than 10. So if we're looking for a game where the audience can engage with us and play with us, that's reaching such a small number of people that even a game like that is a tough sell for a 90-minute stream, right? What we find, and one of the main reason why we stream indie games is because they allow for so much more diversity in personality and in the way that we can play and interpret the games. And it goes back to those like 3 criteria that we look for. It's like, can the audience play with us or engage in some real way? Is it going to be entertaining from start to finish, so it doesn't require, again, 2 hours of gameplay to get to the first big story moment? And is it, or is it emotionally interesting or evocative in some way? Like we have Scary Games Friday, which is our Friday, horror game institution at this point. People look forward to it, and we play games that are genuinely frightening. Like we've had to end a couple of streams early because they're too intense. So it's like real emotion. Can we find games that elicit that kind of emotion? And more often than not, it's indie games that fit one of those 3 categories better than AAA games. A lot of them, on the AAA sphere, and they're wonderful games. They're incredible. I've been playing The Witcher 3 for 4 or 5 months now, and I'm still not done with it. I love the really big, expansive games with tons of detail and huge budgets, but they don't stream well a lot of times, just because it's much harder to infuse personality. There's a lot more downtime. I think a lot of this stuff has already been said. So indies fit the reasons why we stream a lot and have just overall a better value proposition for the audience, which is always our primary metric for success.
Yeah, I can't reiterate enough what I said earlier. I get a lot of developers coming to me as a platform, and look, as a platform, in some cases, we do have partners that we, in some cases, have endorsed or suggested games that are looking for influencers, but ultimately it is the developer's sort of responsibility to go find those people who are going to represent them and figure that out. But I still find a lot of developers coming to me who haven't really watched many streams. They just haven't done the work. They haven't watched streams. They haven't watched VODs. They don't really understand the influencer marketplace. Do your homework. There's millions of hours of video out there around video games. It's available. It's free. It's easy to get into. Just watch streams, because you very quickly find the personalities or the formats that do fit your title. And based on that, you're in a much better situation than just going in and saying, how do I get my game streamed? Does that make sense? You really do need to whittle it down. The streaming infrastructure and ecosystem is way too big right now just to, expect to throw something on the wall and have it stick.
Great. So we just have we have a few minutes left. So I was going to ask you one last question before we go to QA. What do you guys see as next for the streaming industry? What are you most excited to see play out in the next 1 to 2 years? Or you can go 3 to 4.
Okay. Look, I'm biased. Mobile, the numbers we're getting on mobile are good, especially with Clash Royale, but they're a drop in the bucket compared to the other platforms at this point. I do foresee a generational change. We're betting the company on it, if you will. And I'm really hopeful part of that generational change is going to bring additional variety and additional formats to the table. We talked about one on here, the behind the scenes stuff. I haven't seen many people do that. You guys are doing a lot of interesting indie formats. Hopefully there's more and more people doing this. Additional, I think it helps the industry as a whole. I view this as mass entertainment, and right now it's still caught in the niche because of the lack of sort of entertainment outside of just the pure competitive gameplay mode. So I'm hopeful to see that expand.
Yeah, likewise, I wouldn't make any solid predictions, but what I'm hopeful to see is the characters of streaming and of esports especially sort of really come out in a way that we haven't seen quite yet, especially in the US. So, and I think you alluded to this before, when you talk to people about why they like regular sports, traditional sports, they don't talk about that, the game, the competitive aspect of it, as much as they talk about the players that they love, the teams that they love, because of the personalities of the players, the personalities of the teams, the decisions they make, often the political maneuvering they make, just the interesting things that happen around the people who are doing the sports, more than even the sports themselves. And I think that's so fascinating, and you're already starting to see it come to the world of esports where the top players are receiving a lot of recognition, and it's moving toward the US in a really interesting way. I would hope that that would continue, and especially now that esports are starting to also become so much more accessible. You don't have to go to Twitch to watch them. You can watch them through your Xbox and your PlayStation and your Apple TV and your Amazon Fire TV stick, whatever it is, that you can watch it on every platform now, and it's becoming a mainstay of entertainment in general, and I'm excited to see more of that.
I think mobile's going to blow up. It's blowing up huge. What's happening right now in esports on Twitch and with PC gaming and console gaming? I mean, how powerful is my phone right now? Powerful as a PS1? Powerful as a PS2? In 5 years, how powerful is that little piece of whatever? Who knows what it's going to be? It could be something small, it could be something big. How powerful is that going to be? I think that with esports, more and more esports going to mobile, that whole shift from the PC gamer esports hero or player, that's going to go mobile. And then plus with, like I was talking about behind the scenes, and people just live streaming everything, that is all going to shift. And with mobile being so accessible, mobile is huge. With mobile being so accessible, and the younger generation, that's just going to be the natural thing for them. Oh, it's a mobile, whatever. I mean, my 4-year-old granddaughter can play whatever. She's swiping and, doing all kinds of stuff. And she's an expert at console games. What is that? Mickey's, I don't know what the Castle of Illusion, which is a really hard platformer. She was beating that when she was 3.5. So I just think that the pocket whatever is the evolution.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for that. We're going to turn it over to QA. So if anyone in the audience has questions, we'd love to hear from you.
So without giving any names if you don't want to, in the last year, what was probably one of the hardest reviews or relationships you had with the developer, and what could have been different about that experience?
I won't give any names. We went through a couple marquee launches with some pretty well-funded and well-backed independent developers who streamed and even got partners of ours to stream for them, and it was pretty clear after the first 3-4 days that they weren't getting traction from the community for probably a number of reasons, and those conversations are always tough because specifically in the one I'm thinking of, I mean, they did everything I just advised you guys to do, and ultimately it came down to the users weren't, for whatever reason, just didn't glom on. So that's a hard conversation because at the end of the day, the user still has to watch it.
I think, and this kind of goes. This is not anything specific, but that has happened with a project that I've been working with. And people ask about, well, how do you get big on Twitch or how do you get big on YouTube? The answer, there's no magic formula. You can say all of the right things. Yeah, there's 10 steps to do stuff, but the answer is to be entertaining. And how do you be entertaining? I have no freaking clue because everybody's different. So the game has to be entertaining. Well, what is entertaining? As a developer, and I've worked on my own games also, I've got to the point where, is this even fun? I don't even know anymore. So how do you know? You can't know. You have to let other people play it.
That's a really good point, though. Like with the failure I'm talking about, we would have never known until they did stream. So in some ways, it was a good exercise to get there. I mean, it was bad because it didn't succeed, but look, all the pieces were falling together beforehand, and it seemed like it was going to work, and just didn't.
Exactly.
Anything you want to comment on, Stephanie, or any content?
I mean, I can only speak from the actual streamer's perspective. Whenever we have a bad relationship with a developer, it's usually because they're really sensitive about their gameplay. They are really restrictive in what we can play, what we can say, what we can talk about. If you go through 90 minutes of playing a game and you don't say anything negative about it at all, people get weirded out by that. It's not normal. You have to not like something. You have to be honest. And so if developers get too sensitive about their own content, it becomes really hard to play in a genuine way. And to what you just mentioned about not knowing how a game's going to be received until it's out there. I definitely agree that that's the case, but it is really important to do your due diligence and watch what's out there. If what's out there and is really popular is completely different from every aspect of the game you're developing, it's really unreasonable to think that it's going to be successful in a streaming environment if it doesn't have any of the core aspect of entertainment or enthusiasm that you see people actually streaming, right? So it is a matter of really knowing the space. It's so important. I mean, when we, because we also work with developers in a consulting capacity, and one of the things that we tell them if they want to start streaming, if they want to start doing things seriously, playing games on YouTube, on Twitch, anywhere, we say watch the platform where you want to go. You have to know who's playing on that platform. You have to know the top players. If you don't know why PewDiePie is entertaining, you might hate him, but you have to figure it out. You have to know why his content is appealing. You have to know why Captain Sparkle's content is appealing, why it's appealing on YouTube, and why it's appealing on Twitch, and they're different. So you have to do your homework, and hopefully that helps hedge your bets when you're actually developing as well.
But just because you have all of the same kind of stuff, MOBAs are huge. But does anybody remember a game called Tome? Tome was yeah, I loved that game. I was like number 4 Morlock in the world for a while playing it. But for some reason it was an awesome MOBA, but it just didn't take off. It just didn't take off, and then Kixeye just decided to stop putting money towards it. And who knows why? I mean, there's no exact, well, the maps are different. It was fun. I thought it was fun. It was just like League of Legends or any other MOBA that was similar, but it just did not do well.
We have another question.
Hi, our focus is obviously also mobile, and so it's encouraging to hear this talk that you guys are very sort of bullish about the mobile space. But our experiences, we literally have gone through several hundreds of YouTubers, and most of them, they don't focus in mobile, right? We reach out to them, we talk to them. And so I just want to clarify one thing with Stephanie. You said 80% of your gameplay is with the indies developers' games. Are they mobile or PC or others? And then another question is, what would be the tipping point to actually get the critical mass among the talents to mobile, like motivate them to move into the, because we actually talked to Twitch directly. We know the developer relationship manager, basically they're saying is they focus in PC now, not even mobile, right? So who is going to actually be able to make that leap in the near future? Yeah.
I'll tackle the first part, which I think was around platforms. When we stream, we are totally platform agnostic, actually. If it's on PC, if it's on a console, if it's on mobile, it literally doesn't matter.
But what about the games?
I think it was about content type.
Yeah, the content.
For content type, to be honest, MOBAs are really hard for our audience. We've tried a couple of them. We've tried some of the classics, and they don't latch on. For what we see, for where we see MOBAs being most successful, it's really on Twitch. And speaking just from the YouTube perspective, I know that it's harder to goof around. It's harder to again show personality in games that are pretty structured like MOBAs are. And so, I mean, if I were developing a MOBA, I would really focus all of my attention on Twitch, because if you look, I mean, the top 10 games on Twitch being streamed are so MOBA centric, and people there are really interested and invested in that platform specifically, in that format. And maybe you can speak to the question.
Yeah. So on mobile, like mobile phones, smartphone games, you're totally right. I mean, Twitch. I can't go into too much detail because I don't want to disparage them, but they don't seem to be focused on the mobile audience. They've got a really good thing going in other platforms, and sort of they're focusing on that. we're focused on that at Mobcrush, but it is early days. It is not seeing the level of engagement that the other platforms are. What I'm hoping for is a generational change, but I don't think it's going to come from existing influencers that are streaming MOBAs on PC, because they do look at mobile versions of that as inferior or lesser than their current gaming. And frankly, you don't want them streaming it because they will not be a good evangelist if they're talking bad about your game because it's mobile. So I think you need to look for mobile-focused streamers, and they're fewer. I will say there are more on YouTube than there are on Twitch. Twitch very much is a hostile environment for mobile for the most part currently. That's changing because they are getting more and more mobile streamers, but there's a lot of people on there who are just hateful for the sake of being on the internet and being hateful towards mobile. And so I think you really do need to find somebody who's engaged because they want to be engaged around mobile content, and then from there look at MOBA. So for me, that is focus on Vainglory, people. I mean, Vainglory is the largest MOBA on mobile. I know it's hard. Yeah, MOBA on mobile. And you know, look, they're trying to bring it to scale, and there's a lot of people streaming a lot of Vainglory content that I would imagine would be open to conversations about streaming other MOBA content as well.
Okay. So you've got a whole big room over there with a bunch of indie developers right now showing off their stuff. If you could have one big banner either above them or like right in front of them to give some kind of advice, what would you put on that banner?
Yeah, let me jump in there. So the question was, there's a room full of indies next door, and there's a giant banner above all the indies. If you could put one piece of advice on that banner, what would it be?
Talk about your game. I don't know, that's just off the top of my head. First, be passionate about what you're making, and second, talk about your game.
Anybody else?
Post on Twitter.
Yeah.
5 times a day.
Be loud. Be loud. I don't know. Do somersaults. Make balloon animals in the logo of your game.
So Twitter for the
Post
win.
content early and often, I think, would be mine. What's that?
Pallets.
Yes,
Pallets
please.
of Diet Coke.
But really, and by that I just mean release demos, release gameplay footage as soon as you can, get people playing, and don't be afraid to iterate.
Yeah, that's very good advice. And just from the mobile perspective, I know the platforms in some cases do advise against it. I think in the case of pre-launch buzz in this current infrastructure, they're flat out wrong. And I'll go on the record saying that. You need to build buzz. It's your responsibility. It's your game. It's your business. Don't listen to the platforms about launching and whatever the hell you need to build. They're not building your community for you. You're building your community for yourself.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you, guys.